pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Chisel.
Here.
Bell Richard.
Here.
Carlson.
Here.
Luce.
Here.
Bergen.
Here.
Hadley.
Here.
Johnson.
Here.
Approval of agenda. I have a motion for approval of the agenda.
I move to approve the agenda.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Oh, roll call.
Bergen.
Aye.
Bell Richard.
Aye.
Carlson.
Aye.
Luce.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Hadley.
Aye.
Chisel.
Aye.
Okay, under public comment, we've got 3 speakers that have requested to speak, and we'll start with an update and report from the Human Rights Commission with Melissa Cook.
Thank you. So, good evening. My name is Melissa Cook, and I'm the chair of the Decorah Human Rights Commission, appointed by the Commission just this month. I've been working with the Commission, though, since May 2017, so I'm here this evening to provide an update on our work so far in 2017. The Commission was created following passage of a civil rights ordinance in 2006. Our mission is to increase community awareness and appreciation of human diversity through educational programs and to investigate claims of discriminatory practices and provide appropriate remedies where discrimination has been found to exist. Specifically, the Commission is responsible for investigating claims of discrimination in housing, education, accommodations or services, employment, and credit. There are 7 Commission members. Brent Parker is our Vice Chair, Catherine Thompson is our Secretary, Tiffany Macklin, Carol Hemeseth, Elizabeth Kane, Lisa Scott, and myself. So if there's anybody here, well, they can stand up and...
Do we have any other Human Rights Commission committee people here?
Okay. All right, so we meet at least 6 times a year on the first Tuesday of the month from 5:30 to 6:30. In 2017, we met in February, April, May, September, October, November, and December. In 2018, we plan to meet every month with the exceptions of June, July, and August. The Decorah Human Rights Commission is a member of the Iowa Human Rights Commission. The Decorah Human Rights Commission received no formal complaints of discrimination in 2017. However, hate crimes, institutionalized racism, gender biases, and socioeconomic status biases were recognized in Decorah by community members and discussed by the Commission. The Commission focused on educational efforts in 2017 to address these discriminatory practices in the Decorah community, with the goal of being to make sure all members of the community and visitors feel welcome, appreciated, and safe. The Commission focused its efforts on implicit bias education. Research shows that all of us, regardless of gender, race, background, or intent, hold varying degrees of implicit bias. Implicit bias refers to attitudes or stereotypes that affect our understanding, actions, and decisions in an unconscious manner. So an explicit bias is a bias that you can identify and report. You recognize it. An implicit bias is one that is relatively inaccessible to your consciousness or awareness or control. For example, if you tell yourself and others that men and women are equally good at math, it's possible that you associate math more strongly with men without being actively aware of it. In this case, you would have an implicit bias or stereotype about men and math, as well as an implicit bias about women and math. Recognizing and understanding your own implicit biases gives you power to change your attitudes and behaviors towards yourself and towards others. So on November 1st, 2017, the Commission provided an introduction to unconscious bias, implicit bias at the Decorah Public Library. Approximately 30 people attended the event. The event included video to define and illustrate implicit bias and facilitated activities and discussion. Based on my background in gender, race, and social justice research and curriculum development, the Commission asked me to develop the content and to facilitate the event. In 2018, I will facilitate 2 more introductory sessions, one for city employees at noon on February 28th in this room, and the other for business owners at the Decorah Public Library to be held in March or April. In addition, Chad Bird, the Commission's city liaison extraordinaire, shared the dinner and dialogue approach, which has been successful in the Oak Park, Illinois community, as well as other communities. With dinner and dialogue, a community member hosts a dinner for approximately 8 to 12 other community members of diverse backgrounds for an evening of dinner and candid discussion about race, diversity, and inclusion. The goals of this evening is to create a true understanding of diversity and build a stronger sense of community. In 2018, we plan to start with 2 dinners and grow from there. The first 2 dinners this year will be at Chad Bird's house and also Amelia Vought's home, the previous chair. And if others are interested, let me know. In 2017, the Commission has also been in conversation with Chief Bill Nixon about diversity training for the Decorah Police Department and the larger Winnebago County law enforcement teams. The Decorah Police Department would like to offer diversity training for its staff and is looking into the logistics for staffing and funding. This past summer, I did some research into local resources for potential curricula and facilitators for Chief Nixon. The Commission discussed a variety of possible funding sources for such a training, including the Winnebago Community Foundation, Arlen Fallick Foundation, and the Depot, which we also shared with Chief Nixon. In 2018, conversations with the police department continue. Brent Parker, a Decorah police officer and a member of the Commission, is facilitating these efforts. The Commission will also be in conversation with other Decorah institutions in 2018. On October 27th, 2017, I attended the 2nd Annual Iowa Civil Rights Symposium on behalf of the Decorah Human Rights Commission. This one-day program provided presentations and panel discussions on Iowa civil rights laws. In 2018, we hope to send other Commission members to such events and connect with other Iowa communities' human rights commissions to learn what other communities are doing that's effective. Lastly, in 2018, the Commission plans to invite community members to its meetings so they can share their experience with discrimination in Decorah. Our objectives are to let more people in the community know who the Commission is, what it does, and how it can help. And 2, for the Commission members to learn more about what discrimination community members are experiencing. So thank you for inviting me to share our 2017 activities and plans for 2018.
Thank you.
I appreciate the work that Commission does and the strength that you brought to it, but also the members that have been included in that. I'll look forward to some of the sessions that are coming up, and I appreciated that you took your time and effort to go to that Civil Rights Commission meeting in Iowa. Do any of the other city council people have any questions, comments? Here. Thanks, Melissa.
Thanks.
Emily Neal is asked to speak.
I'm driving my own.
I'm Lyle Oddie.
And I'm Emily Neal.
We both are volunteers working with the Decorah Power. While not on the board ourselves, we've been inspired by the work of Decorah Power, which has been investigating the feasibility of a municipal electric utility on behalf of the Decorah community. Over the last month, we, along with 20 other volunteers, have been listening and talking with folks in our community on the issue of municipal electric utility. We've heard their hopes and thoughts, their questions, and their concerns. We found overwhelmingly that Decorah residents are interested in and open to this venture. There's an optimism that is a municipal electric utility which can offer our community to reach a new level of prosperity and sovereignty. As you'll see in a minute, over 700 people have signed the signature sheets, which said, we request the Decorah City Council pass a resolution to place the following question before the voters at a special election in May of 2018. Shall the city of Decorah in the county of Winnebago be authorized to establish a municipally owned electric utility governed by a board of trustees?
With our actual total being about 727 signatures as of this morning, clearly the Decorah community is ready for a May 1st vote. We want to thank the City Council for including this issue on the agenda tonight and hope that these signatures from our community provide guidance and support for you in your decision to call the referendum to a vote tonight. This vote is a next step in a process that began with the City Council involvement nearly over a year ago. In March of 2017, the City Council voted to authorize Decorah Power to conduct a feasibility study of a Decorah municipal electric utility and to put on hold a franchise negotiation during that process. That study was completed with funds raised from the community, and indicated the potential for significant community benefit from a municipal utility. And on one final note, we would like to recognize the value and commitment that Alliant employees have provided to our community for over 100 years. We do not see this referendum in any way anti-Alliant, and this need not divide our community. As we look forward to the next 100 years, to a new energy future, and the opportunities for local ownership based on values of stewardship, efficiency, and community investment, we think that the citizens of Decorah should decide how best to move forward. We want to thank you for your service and the opportunity to share this feedback from our community.
Emily, I have
Yeah.
a question for you.
Yeah.
Did you look, of those all,
Sure.
can you tell me a percentage that were residents of Decorah?
Yes.
Non-residents and Luther?
Yes, I can.
That'd be great.
So within the 727 signatures, while not planned, 27 were actually from outside of the Decorah community.
Say that again?
27 of them are from outside of the, that cannot vote. They're not city residents.
Now, that's not a percent, that's...
Oh, I know that 27, I didn't get that percent. 27 of the 700. So if you want to say that 700 Decorah residents signed, you could do that.
Okay.
And then I did analyze, because I knew the Luther students were an issue, and so I analyzed what percent of the survey, or what percent of the signatures are Luther students, and it is 13.79%
Okay.
of the signatures on here are from Luther students.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yep.
Lorraine, it'd be 3.4% for
Thank
the
you.
outside the community.
Thank you
Oh,
very much.
thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah. And yeah.
Okay,
And we have this coming as a PDF, but these are the actual official signatures.
okay. Okay, and then for 2 minutes is James Kaufman and Andrea Vasquez.
Yes, that's me.
I'm James Kaufman. This is my wife, Andrea Vasquez.
Good evening.
And we're to speak about the issues of the soundscape. The soundscape is our sonic environment. It's a very important component of our environment, but a lot of people don't realize just how important it is. I can direct you to research of people like Arlene Bronzaft and Lorraine Maxwell to show how important the soundscape is. But we're limited in time, so I'm making this as brief as possible. For us, the 3 sources of invasive and unnecessary noise that we experience are car stereos, illegal exhaust systems, and now we have a third one, which is the Casey's store next door, which expanded. We had given them the benefit of the doubt that they would be able to be responsible neighbors. I had counted, when they finished the building, 9 machines on the roof facing directly at us. And they're noisy. All sorts of different frequency of noise come from these machines. They promised that they would build a wall. Well, they did build this little wall, but it made absolutely no difference. So we need to hold Casey's accountable, and I need your support in doing this. They could have put those machines on the other side, but I think honestly, they really screwed up. Anyway, we should be careful not to let this happen in the future with other zoning approval issues. But right now, we have to deal with this one. I repeat, the wall that they built made absolutely no difference. So I have put my contact information on all of your desks. I'm hoping, I definitely want to get at least one council member, and the more the better, to work directly with to deal with the soundscape issues that we and other Decorah citizens are facing.
Okay. I also told you when my hours are and invited you to come in. If those hours do not work for you, then let
Thank
me
you.
know. I'd be glad to work.
Thank you. Let's
Thank you
do
very-
that, and I appreciate that, and thank you for your
Thank
time.
you very much.
Thank you.
Consent agenda.
Item A, minutes of the February 5th, 2018 meeting. Item B, claims. Item C, change order number 1, Highway 9 Park Street lighting in the amount of $2,016. Item D, partial pay estimate number 3, final for Highway 9 Park Street lighting in the amount of $17,432.40. Item E, resolution 2867, accepting the Highway 9 Park Street lighting project as complete. Item F, partial pay estimate number 2, Court Street retaining wall improvement project in the amount of $15,002.90. Item G, new Class B beer permit for Winnebago County Ag, including outdoor service area and Sunday sales. Item H, consider C3 design review at 606 West Water Street and State and East Streets for Verizon Wireless. Item I, Resolution 2866, setting a public hearing on zoning code amendments, rezoning of property 3 Chicks Rental, LLC, 2072 State Highway 9 West to C1 Highway Commercial Zoning District, set for March 5th, 2018 at 5:45 p.m. And item J, Resolution 2865, setting a date for a public hearing on zoning code amendments, rezoning of property T&T Properties LLC, 2700 College Drive to R1 Single Family Residential Zoning District, set for March 5th, 2018 at 5:45 p.m.
Do I have a motion to accept the consent agenda?
Make a motion for approval of the consent agenda.
Second.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Roll call. Or we can do a roll call.
Well, next
Carlson?
time.
Aye.
Chisel?
Aye.
Bergen?
Aye.
Hadley?
Aye.
Johnson?
Aye.
Luce?
Aye.
Bell Richard?
Aye.
Motion passes. Number 6, consider recall of appointment of council liaison to the Decorah Power Committee, the liaison being Steve Luce. Do you want to comment on that, or would you like me to comment?
Well,
We'll have John comment on it.
with the consideration of a referendum on whether the city should move forward with establishing a municipal electric utility, I think it's advisable that the city council formally sever the official liaison relationship in regards to that referendum at this time.
Okay. Do I have a motion to do so?
I will motion to recall the city council liaison to Decorah Power.
I'll second it.
Any discussion?
I think it was appropriate to set such up, and what we did. And as I understood the motion, it was to get us as a council through the feasibility study. And having that been done and presented, I think it's totally appropriate to support this.
I appreciate the extra time and effort that you put into
Years.
to say thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, roll call.
Very good. Bell Richard?
Aye.
Johnson?
Aye.
Hadley?
Aye.
Bergen?
Aye.
Chisel?
Aye.
Carlson?
Aye.
Luce?
Aye.
Okay, the next item is consider resolution 2869, approving the form of contract and awarding, missed.
68.
Consider resolution 2868, a resolution calling special election whether to establish a municipally owned electric utility. Prior to some of the discussion, I do have a couple notes that I want to pass on to you. The council met in work session on the 13th. The discussion overview included discussion on the issues of the proposed referendum, issues of the existing franchise agreement, and issues of the 2 feasibility studies. John Anderson and Chad presented the Decorah City Council significant initial decisions, which we went through, and the major initial decisions that were noted was special election referendum options, including dates as to when those could be held, potential ballot questions, and the council consensus was, shall Decorah pursue municipal-owned electric utility? The need for citizen consensus prior to moving forward. City feasibility study. Upon referendum results, a third-party review would be advised due to the extreme variation of feasibility studies. The council chose not at this time to do a feasibility study for financial reasons and just to get the result of the referendum. The franchise agreement discussion touched on negotiation of a new agreement, ramification of letting current franchise expire. I believe the key takeaway from this discussion was the ramifications of holding a referendum prior to expiration of the current agreement. John reported that there was not been a test case in this instance. That being said, would it be putting the city at risk? Would it be prudent to wait until after the franchise agreement expires at the end of June? And if the city moves forward, the city and city council will be the applicant to the IUB. What will it take for the city to build an ironclad bulletproof petition to the IUB? The council noted the risk and discussed it and voiced approval to move ahead with the referendum. Fiscal considerations that we discussed were additional information for MEU, the cost of the MEU and going to the IUB, cost of the system acquisition and construction, revenue generation and consideration for GEO bonds, which does go against the debt capacity. The council did agree to instruct Chad and John to drop the referendum question as instructed prior to tonight's meeting. I have a general comment to make. Both entities have had over a year to research and bring forth these studies. They've had excellent people in both arenas that brought forth those studies. The City Council, which includes 3 new members seated in January, has had less than 2 months to review the studies, attend the various discussions, and receive comments. In addition, this is in addition to their general orientation to be seated at the council, budget preparations and work sessions, and numerous council considerations, which I've appreciated their efforts in moving in a fast track. The extremely limited timetable for consideration and finalizing of submission forms by March 2nd for the May 1st referendum is a point of frustration from my point of view because of the time frame. I understand the importance, I understand the work that went with it, but it's a lot to ask of a city council that really hasn't had a lot of time to look at it. That being said, we did discuss it at the work session on the 13th, and it now is before the city council for calling for the special election, whether to establish a municipally owned electric utility. I invite any city council people to add, or if they had any comments from what I had stated, just to add, if they so wish. Okay. That being said, resolution that as of 2868.
Mayor, I think for the sake of the public, I'll read the 2 key points at least of the resolution so that everybody's clear
That'd be great.
what the council would be voting on. Now therefore be it resolved by the City Council, Section 1, that there is hereby called a special city election on Tuesday, the first day of May 2018, at which election there shall be submitted to the registered voters of the City of Decorah the following question, to wit, shall the City of Decorah and the County of Winneshiek, State of Iowa, be authorized to establish a municipally owned electric utility?
Thank you.
I'd move resolution 2868.
I'll second that.
Discussion.
As was discussed at the work session that we had, it seems that before incurring any further expenses on this project, it would be good to have the citizens give us their feeling regarding going forward with this. And in that work session, as opposed to what Emily and Lyle read, of talking about a commission, we saw it as a simplification and a focus of having the city council take leadership if the citizens do vote in favor in deciding when it would be done and how it would be done. So that's the difference between what was read and what Chad just said. And I would support going ahead with that May 1st date.
Any other comments?
I think the only comment I would make is what would make this a lot easier is to know you had 100% reliable numbers one way or the other. And I think after everything that we've been looking at and hearing, it's just, I don't feel like there's going to be any magic bullet out there that's going to give us those numbers. And so because of that, I don't really see the reason to delay any further. The frugality of me would say, why not just wait till November and save the $5,000 to $7,000? But my wife also calls me cheap and says it's not that much per person, just get it over with because it's there on the table. So I think she probably has some reasoning.
Any other comment from the council people? Roll call.
Luce?
Aye.
Johnson?
Aye.
Hadley?
Aye.
Bergen?
Aye.
Chisel?
No.
Bell Richard?
Aye.
Carlson?
Aye.
Passed with 1 no. I don't know if that's how you say it. You know, this is a huge topic for this city. It's probably one of the bigger ones that we have had since I've been coming. And it is important, utterly important, that every citizen learn about both sides of the issue so that they can make a viable vote when they go to vote for in what is it, the 1st of May, I believe.
Yes.
That because it's so big, it's unfair to have 7 people and a mayor sitting attempting to make that decision for the public. But you have to learn more. You have to go out and you have to figure out which way you're going to vote because it will make a difference. There will be a lot of opportunities. I'm guessing that both groups, just as they already have opportunities out there, and if you can't find a place, let us know, or we can direct you someplace where you can get information. Thank you. Okay, now number 8, which is Resolution 2869.
Approving the form of contract and awarding the bid for the RCB box culvert for the Dry Run Trail Extension Improvement Project. This is a DOT bid project. It's wholly funded through 3 different sources of funding, the State Rec Trail Program, the Federal Recreational Trail Program, and state DNR REAP dollars, or combinations thereof in the project. This is the 2nd time the city has bid this project. The first time all of the bids were over the amount of funding available. Bids were received. They're in your packet. Apparent low bidder is Wicks Construction, $502,095.58. And that is the recommendation of the DOT and the Trail 2080 Board, is to accept that low bid and award the contract. I don't know if there's any other questions from the
Yes,
council.
I do. I'd like you to state where the funding is coming, or how that came about and where that funding is coming from.
So either in cooperation with the Trail 2080 Board, which is a city-county trail group that was established to build and administer the Trout Run Trail. They also look at trail extensions. Either Winship County Conservation Board, Barb Schroeder, or City Parks and Recreation, Andy Nimrod, have secured funding through the federal rec trail programs, or the state trail programs, or the REAP dollars in excess of $1.5 million, $1.6 million. Not only for this box culvert piece, which is kind of a phase one or a separate piece, but also for the second segment, which is trail right-of-way acquisition and development, ultimately connecting the Trout Run Trail through Conover to Calmer to connect to the Prairie Farmer Trail. And all of that funding that I've mentioned in those sources takes care of the box culvert and the right-of-way acquisition only.
Thank you. I think that's important to know as, well, there's a hill on the other side of there. I'm not sure how you would put something up there, but
I'll make a motion to approve.
maybe.
Second.
Discussion on the motion?
Well, are we any closer to getting the trail done? I mean, do we have all the land needed to?
Yeah.
The land part is ongoing, and there has been steps taken, especially if you've heard of
if you've been up to speed on the county's work, they have the Nestea property that's been purchased that is in the middle, roughly between our end and the Conover end. And the focus has been to get the first half and the north half from here to that farm done. Those appraisals and the parts of that have been assembled. The flooding in 2016 set back the schedule because of some issues basically for Barb, who's been working on the negotiations, just simply had to step aside and start working on FEMA issues rather than continuing to focus on the trail part of it. That she's back working on that again and continues to do that. That's the best I can say, is that the right-of-way part is ongoing with the balance of the funding, and we are in conversation with the DOT as we complete steps. There's quite a few steps that have to be done for each portion, not just accomplishing a route with the property owner, but also any environmental clearances, archaeology, wetlands, those type of things. And then there's an appraisal process that we go through, and it does take quite a bit of time to go through each step. That's the reason why it's still as much time as the box has taken, taking a fair amount of time just to get through the property part of it. The property part is complex.
So how long are you looking at?
We have asked for an extension because of the flooding and some of the factors in the two halves. I believe right now the right-of-way portions are requested through 2020 and 2021. The appraisals alone in the year that we've spent working, it took about a year to get through those because there's an appraisal and a review appraisal, and that process just takes time. Barb is actually out there working on trying to get back together with the property owners now and making the adjustments if we have to make those for things that have been altered by flooding or by property owner wishes. But it is about a 2020 to 2021 type end date based on what we've estimated.
But with the bid being as low as it is versus the other bids that we've seen, the fact that the funding is in place and we have our side of the trail done.
My question though on this whole thing, we're putting a hole under the road. It might be 10, 15 years. Do we have to come back and redo this before it can actually be used? I mean, if it's just sitting there, it's not being maintained, out of sight, out of mind, out of use. And so are we going to have to come back? And then it would come out of our pocket, not out of
If I can, I don't think the box itself would have to have any alterations. There's very little there that would probably be at risk, you know, from a weather standpoint and those type of things. At some point, when the right-of-way begins to be acquired and we have pieces, I think there will be interest in beginning to try to open things up so that you can at least let people see what is trying to happen. But that's a coordinated effort along with multiple property owners. It's a complex thing to put all those pieces together. Yeah, but I don't think that this particular piece of infrastructure, especially with the box culvert, is going to be a high-risk thing as an investment. Actually, you own half of this with the county based on where the city's corporation line is at the moment, and simply were asked, I think, to be the administrator because of the REAP funds, which were uniquely city. But I think that's why the 28E group has been going through this as part of the process, just like the Freeport Trail, because you each have some portion of the piece that we're talking about at the moment.
Lindsay, what's the typical lifespan of a box culvert?
They generally are similar to what we expect out of the bridges and things that we would do, so I would say you're talking about 75 years.
Further discussion? Roll call.
Hadley?
Aye.
Luce?
Aye.
Johnson?
Aye.
Carlson?
Aye.
Bell Richard?
Aye.
Chisel?
Aye.
Bergen?
Aye.
Introduction and first reading of Ordinance 1215, amending Chapter 17.16, sign regulations.
This is a signed ordinance amendment, basically reclassifying temporary signs. It's coming through planning and zoning. They spent a fair amount of time reviewing a U.S. Supreme Court decision from several years ago, determining that specific and called out temporary signs could be deemed as unconstitutional. If you judge the sign by its content, could be an infringement on free speech. Through the planning and zoning consultation with city attorney John here, they've drafted this amendment that basically defines temporary signs by size, placement, and duration of stay rather than content. And that's essentially the effect of this ordinance. It's gone through planning and zoning, public hearing, and action, and they recommend approval to the city council.
I move to approve ordinance 1215.
Second.
Discussion?
Thank you to P&Z for their work.
Roll call.
Bell Richard?
Aye.
Carlson?
Aye.
Luce?
Aye.
Johnson?
Aye.
Hadley?
Aye.
Chisel? Bergen?
Aye.
Introduction and first reading of Ordinance 1216, amending Chapter 17.16, accessory buildings.
This is also a recommendation from the Planning and Zoning Commission, having held their public hearing and discussion on this. This is a change to the accessory building maximum height. In a review of the Board of Adjustments 2017 applications and variances granted, there seemed to be a rather large number of them that were granted for heights on accessory buildings. So in that review, the Planning and Zoning Commission recommended just changing the zoning code on that to allow for what effectively we were permitting anyway through the Board of Adjustment process. And so their recommended change in the height of an accessory building is to 14 feet from the current 12 feet. There's a diagram as to how that's measured in your background notes if there's any discussion on that.
Yeah, I didn't see the diagram. Make a motion for approval of ordinance 1216.
Second.
Discussion?
Chad, do you know, would these primarily be garage structures?
Accessory structures are detached, and they have primarily been garages. As a matter of fact, maybe there was one shed.
And then the height, the additional height, is that because there's an office or some other space going above it? Or
Generally,
just a
we're
large-
finding the pitch of the roof has changed, and so that makes it harder to meet that current or that 12-foot maximum based on that.
I
If
thought
you're
it
a
was
contractor, you kind of understand that, but
Wasn't it something to do with pre-made trusses?
I mean,
Do we
yes,
have any-
we are
any
seeing
comment
some
on that?
prevalence of, second-story garage structures as well, but that's not the overriding reason. Steve,
Is
sorry.
there any public comment?
There were not on this one.
How about the previous
No,
signs?
no.
Would this change make it easier for like a garage structure with a second story on it? Would
No, because if they have that second story, they're usually
still gonna be
considerably
higher.
taller.
Right.
Mhm.
So you'd still need
Even
a
than the 14
variance.
feet. The 14 feet, when you look at just a regular garage structure,
Yeah.
seemed to be kind of the average of the applications that we were seeing. If we saw applications that had a second story or something like that, they were more in the 20 or 21-foot range.
Well, it's a separate process, or
It's a different-
through that
yeah.
variance.
That's right.
And that would still be a Board of Adjustment exception hearing.
Yes. If you approve this and the new height becomes 14 feet, anything over that would still need a Board of Adjustment application.
Roll call.
Carlson?
Aye.
Bergen?
Aye.
Chisel?
Aye.
Bell Richard?
Aye.
Luce?
Aye.
Johnson?
Aye.
Hadley?
Aye.
I'd like to try moving the second, or waiving the second and third and moving to adopt on 2016.
Discussion before a motion is made.
They've had 2 hearings? Correct? They've had 2 hearings on this?
They had a hearing and a meeting, right? P&Z, at P&Z, right?
The only piece was that is when I go to those, there may not have been people that were there, whether that would make any difference in this. There wasn't a lot of the public that was there.
I think this is a strong thing because it takes the need for regular exceptions to our code and makes our code more in line with reality and gets things out of the Board of Adjustment regularly that shouldn't necessarily be there. So, and that's why I think no one's really making comment, because it's normal business these days to have a 14 average height thing. So that's why I would move to waive second and third and adopt.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Roll call.
Luce?
Aye.
Hadley?
Aye.
Bergen?
Aye.
Chisel?
No.
Bell Richard?
No.
Carlson?
No.
Johnson?
No.
Can you give me the count on that, Chad?
Well, it looks like it's 2 to 5.
Pardon?
3 to
3 to
Oh,
5.
three-
It's more than
3 to 4.
3 to 4. 4 no.
Correct.
Yes, sorry.
Motion fails. Consider approval of the 2018 Farmers Market Agreement. Chad, do you have stuff on that?
So I did have communication with the board president, Josh Dinsdall, and manager Steve McCarger. None of the three of us recommend any changes, so the updated version is in your background notes. We recommend approval. Steve McCarger was not able to make it this evening due to the weather, but he did want me to convey sincere thanks from him and his board in gratitude for being able to use the city parking lot. They really enjoy that space, and they believe it works well. So again, no changes. We recommend approval for 2018.
And it's an annual agreement?
It's an annual agreement, May 1 to December 1 each year.
I motion to approve the 2018 Farmers Market Agreement.
Second.
Discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Bell Richard?
Aye.
Bergen?
Aye.
Chisel?
Aye.
Carlson?
Aye.
Luce?
Aye.
Johnson?
Aye.
Hadley?
Aye.
City manager report?
Just a couple of things. I wanted to draw the council's attention to an ash borer class on Tuesday, February 27th. If you're interested in learning more about pruning and caring for any trees, and particularly learning more about the ash borer and how that affects our community, that'll be here at City Hall at 6 p.m. on Tuesday the 27th. And also to draw your attention to a planning and zoning workshop held here at Hotel Winneshiek on April 10th. I have several members of the Planning and Zoning Commission and the Board of Adjustment attending that this year because it is held here locally. If any council members are interested, again, that's an evening, there is a meal provided. Learn a little bit more about planning and zoning, let me know. And finally, to let you know that I will be out of the office Wednesday through Tuesday, later this week through Tuesday of next week.
Was the one at the hotel, was that April 20th?
April 10th.
10th.
Is it similar to the one that would have been held there a couple of years ago?
Yeah, they usually hold it here about every 2 or 3 years. It's conducted by ISU Extension.
But is it the same workshop?
Yes.
Not doing that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Just a quick note that we have provided a response back to FEMA's consultant on the flood mapping that they released, the preliminary mapping. That mapping is something where we had a short period of time to make obvious minor corrections with minimal justification. In other words, these are just simply things that we saw in the maps that we did not agree with, that we could justify asking them to change. We sent those in. This is the last step before they would be released to the public for the potential adoption process to continue. But just as FYI, we have provided a response after review of the maps.
Okay. Thank you.
Just a little update on water temperatures. We have stopped using well number 2. The temperature of that water has dipped down to 39 degrees, so we've just turned that well off for now. We're still using the other 5, and they're averaging right around 50 degrees, so we're still sitting pretty good. We have started running some residents, but the majority of the residents that we're running right now are on our dead-end mains, and we're just trying to keep those mains flowing and so the water keeps moving. So we'll keep you informed as to any big changes.
Thank you.
I'd like to remind everybody of the great Inflate and Pancake breakfast lunch on Saturday at Decorah High School. We are bringing in inflatable slides, obstacle courses. It'll be a fun family event, and the guys that know how to make pancakes will be flipping pancakes as well. And the proceeds from the pancake dinner will be going into reforesting Decorah as we lose our ash trees to the emerald ash borer. So.
The Decorah Public Library is currently in the middle of a search for a new retired and senior volunteer program director. Full details are available on the city's website. We hope to have somebody in place leading that program at the beginning of April. And coming up in March, we're also going to start working on some sort of interior updates at the library. We'll be doing a little bit of painting. We don't anticipate needing to be closed at all, but we may be rerouting traffic a little bit on the inside of the building. Thank you.
Thank you. I think the only thing I can say for the street department is may the force be with you. And maybe Mother Nature also. Put it that way. Okay. We'll take a brief.
Council.
Okay, you want to go down? I didn't know if they wanted that before or after. Okay, let's go around by to the city
I have
council.
nothing this evening.
Nothing for me, Mrs. Mayor.
Nothing at this time, Mayor.
I have nothing.
Nothing at this time?
I've just got a quick one. I went to the visioning meeting at Upper Explorerland, and they are just in the process of mailing out information to a cross-section of the community to find out what people's needs and wants are regarding walkable, bikeable traffic flow within the community.
Okay, and that's the community visioning?
The community visioning grant.
Yep.
Nothing, Mayor.
I got nothing.
Okay, now we will take a brief break, about 5 minutes.